Hi everybody, Eric Kidwell, morethankind.com, coming to you today with 3 phrases with secret power. These 3 phrases are things we don't say very often. In fact, we try to avoid saying these very often. But what I've found is that when we say these 3 phrases, when we use them appropriately, really good things happen out of negative things. So here they are. The first phrase is, I don't know. We don't like to say that, and no one really has ever liked to say that, but it seems like more and more and more in the internet age, we don't like to say, I don't know, because it implies somehow that we lack expertise. Well, guess what? We can't be experts at everything, despite the fact that we have a phone in our pocket, which gives us expertise on many, many things. It really doesn't. It gives us a glossing over of a subject. If we don't know, we can just say, I don't know. And there's power in that. Well, let's go back and say, why wouldn't you say, I don't know? Well, I don't want to look stupid, is what I hear all the time. I don't want people to think they can't count on me. There's 100 reasons why we would not want to say, I don't know. But the secret power of that phrase is that you can use that phrase to build teamwork, to build trust, and build a lot of things that maybe you don't get if you just pretend like you know something and go forward. It also can keep you out of some jams. Saying I don't know requires humility. Sometimes that's why it makes it so tough. It's hard for us to be humble sometimes and say, you know, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. And there's 2 really good ways you can follow up that phrase, I don't know, that give you secret power. You can say, I don't know, but I will find out. That's great. That shows that they can count on you. You don't know, you're willing to admit it, you're humble, but you will go forward and find out. That helps you build a sense of service. I don't know, but I'll find out means I am in your service. You have a need, and I will serve that need. It's an important way to build that trust and that sense of service. But if you just say, yeah, I know, here it is, here's the answer, and you give them the wrong answer, you've destroyed that trust. The second way to answer it is, I think, even better. I don't know, but let's find out. Let's find out together how we can get the answer or solve the problem or whatever it may be. That builds leadership. Think about what you're saying when you say, I don't know, but let's find out. What you're saying is, you have a problem, you have a need for knowledge, you have something that you require, and you're coming to me for help. That automatically means I'm kind of important, right? But if we say, I don't know, but let's find out, it shows leadership. It means you can come to me and I will work with you to get the answer, to find the solution. It's a great way to build trust among others. So, I don't know is a secretly powerful phrase you should start using more often, when you don't know. The second phrase we're going to talk about today that has secret power is this one. I screwed up. We don't like to say that. We don't like to say, it's my fault. I made a mistake. I screwed up. But why wouldn't we want to say that? Well, there's a lot of reasons why, but mainly it's because we don't want to have the consequences for our mistakes. We'd like to kind of get by without having to deal with the negative impacts of mistakes that we've made. But guess what? We all make mistakes, and I think everybody knows that. So it requires some trust of us to say, I screwed up. It requires that we trust others, that we be able to say, I'm looking to you to understand that I've made a mistake here. But it is highly empowering to say, I screwed up. First of all, it discharges all of the negative energy, most of it, unless it's a huge mistake. If you say right away, if you take ownership of that mistake, now we're on to solutions. We're on to blame until someone has taken responsibility for a mistake. Then we're just focused on who did this. I had a boss once whose first reaction to any problem was, who did this? Well, how do you think that worked out? It was no good. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for anything because they knew he immediately was going to blow up and say, whose fault is this right away? But you have to trust that the people you work with and that you work for and the people that work for you will trust you and have some trust in them that you can say, I screwed up. Have that trust, have that grace, and good things happen. And that word grace is really important because what you give to others when you say, I screwed up, you give them a gift, the opportunity to exhibit grace. Nobody wants to be the boss that says, whose fault is this? And everybody, sit in the room and will somebody stand up and take responsibility for this, and we're going to find out who caused this problem. Nobody wants to be that boss, and if you have a boss that wants to be that way, I'd look for another job. Because most people, most bosses, most employees, most team members, most people that work for you want to be able to be graceful. They want to be able to say, hey, it's okay, let's solve the problem. As soon as you say, I've screwed up, it's like magic. We're on to solutions instead of on to blame. I was working in a company that owned television stations, and we had a very small television station back in Virginia, and we had negotiated to get the Baltimore Orioles games that we could air. It was the big coup for the station, and we got what's called a clean feed, which means there's no graphics on it. So I actually designed a whole graphics package, and we were running the game as if we were in the control booth. We were putting the stats up, calculating batting averages, and the whole thing going on the screen. So proud of it. Game is about to start. We have advertisers for the first time. The station is going to make some money tonight. And suddenly, we go off the air. During my final check of what's going on, everyone's freaking out. This is our biggest moment as a television station, and the power has gone out. We have lost signal. All is lost. We looked around for quite a while. And unfortunately for me, I happened to look down behind me and realized that I had kicked the plug out of the wall that powered the entire station. Now, I'm not proud that this happened, but it tells you what a small TV station we were. Everything was plugged into one plug. So I immediately just went, I screwed up. Well, part of it was I kind of had to admit it because I was right there by the plug. So when I plugged it in, we came back on, everything was okay. Now I could have been like, I'm the hero, and I figured out what the problem is. Whose fault was this? It was obviously my fault, and I think probably everybody would have known that. But I immediately fessed up. A weird thing happened. It was the first time it ever happened in my career that I had really made a massive mistake. And I learned a big lesson that night because the general manager called and said, what happened? And I said, well, I got to be honest, I kicked the plug out of the wall, and we went off the air. And I was waiting to get fired, but instead a different thing happened. He was graceful, and he said, well, you know, we probably shouldn't have the whole TV station plugged into one plug. True, but it actually did good things for my career. I was recognized as a person in charge. I was recognized as a person who took responsibility for things. It's the strangest thing that happened to me to that point because it was so reversed of what I expected to happen. I actually got promoted because I made a huge mistake. It's actually not that uncommon. So, I screwed up is a phrase that carries a lot of power. Now, I'm not saying go out and make a bunch of mistakes. What I'm saying is own up to it when something happens. Let's go to phrase number 3. And that third phrase is not really even a phrase, it's just a word. And I feel like I want to preach about this one because it's so important, and I know so many people who need to hear this, that there is power in the word no. No is a word we don't say enough. And in fact, people that are achievers, people that are good-hearted, people that are hard workers, don't like to say no. Why do we like to say no? Well, we don't want to feel like we're not competent. We grow up being told all through school and through our childhoods to, someone asks you to do something, you say yes. That's the polite thing to do. We don't want to be impolite. But what happens when you're past your capacity? Well, now you're not doing anybody a favor if you don't say no. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, and I'm not particularly good at it myself. I tend to say yes to everything, and then I get resentful. That's what happens to me, and I know it's a character flaw of mine to say yes to everything, and then when I'm halfway done or when things get stressful, now I'm bitter. Now I'm resentful about the people that asked me to do something. Guess what? I'm the guy that said yes. By the way, you might hear off in the distance my wife nodding her head vigorously. You can hear that because she knows that that's a personality trait of mine. I'm working on it. And it would be better if I would just learn to say no, and I think it's probably true for you. So this is video of my friend Jonathan the juggler. Now you might be saying, Eric, why are you showing me a juggler when we're talking about secretly powerful phrases? Well, Jonathan is an expert juggler. He's the best I've ever been in the company of, and I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. It's been my condition to know a lot of jugglers in my life, and so Jonathan's really the best. And he can juggle almost anything. He can juggle many, many things. I think he can juggle 6 balls at once, maybe more than that. Now, Jonathan's really good at it, and he's very competent. But if he were juggling his maximum number of balls and he's got them all in the air and I said, hey Jonathan, juggle this one, add this to the mix. Well, he might be agreeable and say yes. Well, what's going to happen? He's going to drop every single ball he's got going, and what's the audience going to think? They're going to think, he's a terrible juggler. Well, he's the best in the world at juggling, but now I think he's bad because he overtaxed himself. He went beyond his capacity. That's the power of saying no, is that it keeps you within your capacity. But here's the challenge for you. You have to know your capacity before you can say no to things. That's a difficult challenge. Jonathan knows he can juggle 6 balls. He's probably watching this going, I can juggle 10, whatever it may be. Whatever his capacity is, he can do that. And he can certainly work on getting a bigger and better capacity to juggle more things. But until he has that, he wouldn't dare go on stage trying to juggle more than he could. But you do that every day. People say to you, can you help me with this? And you say, yes. Could you take on this project? Yes. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking to yourself, no, I can't. I'm swamped. I'm already going to be up till 11 o'clock at night. You can't do that to yourself, and you can't do that to others. So you've got to take a personal inventory. Have some self-awareness. Where am I in terms of the fullness of my cup? People say my cup runneth over. That's a good thing when you're talking about grace and love and gratitude and joy. We want our cups to run over. But when it comes to stress and workload and other people's priorities, now we have a problem if our cup is running over. And that's a key phrase. Other people's priorities is the important piece of that. If you are continually saying yes to other people's priorities, what happens to your priorities? Well, you know what happens. They get pushed to the back. And then here's what happens to your priorities. Your priorities, hopefully, are the things that give you joy and that you have enthusiasm for. And enthusiasm is so important in our lives that when you take on too many of other people's priorities and you put those first because you're a good person and we've been taught since childhood to put others first, we do that. Well, now we push our own priorities back and back and back, and now suddenly we lose enthusiasm for our priorities, the things that actually make life worth living for us and that we have joy and hope and just happiness about. We lose the joy, we lose the happiness, we lose the hope because we're just swamped with other things. So learn to say no, and learn to use these 3 phrases every day, whenever you need to. So, I don't know, I screwed up, and no are 3 secretly powerful phrases that will really, really help you in your life going forward. Thanks for joining me today. Come back for more videos here, morethankind.com. We'll see you soon.